Greetings one and all. We continue to live in interesting times. It's been quite a week worldwide. Lots going on globally that will have an impact on everybody's everyday life. Also a lot going on the personal side for a lot of people as well. The full moon, the harvest moon that reaps what has been sown over the last year. So from what we've been doing individually, and as we come into autumn, we will start, like I say, reaping what we've sown. We're going to get the rewards for what work we've been doing upon ourselves as we go forward into winter. And this isn't just happening for us individually. I'm beginning to see it happening in other people that aren't following a particular spiritual path. There seems to be what people have done in their materialistic secular world in the last 9 months. It feels like a year of revelations, as each year is really, but for some reason this year people are getting their just rewards, maybe is the thing to say, though at the same time there's a lot of people stirring and causing a lot of trouble. And again, this is all down to what their conscience is saying to them. A lot of these people are asleep, as we know. They're not doing inner or outer work. There's a lot of people out there that seem to think it's okay to do what they want and to say what they want without any concern for other people's feelings, being, or just what impact it's having on the world. I've done various shows over the years about how what we speak and say goes out into the air, into the ether, and affects what's out there and will pass out. Okay, it does start to dwindle, dilute as it spreads out across the world, but all this negative talk that's going on, and I don't think it's just people who want to cause trouble. There's a lot of people out there like that. There's a lot of people that like what I call shit stirrers. They like to stir up trouble because they like to see the reaction. They feed off all that energy caused from all the mayhem they have created. And of course there's a lot of people out there that have no concern for anybody else, live for themselves, just self-ego. And there's also people out there that just want to fight other people. I sometimes find that mentality difficult myself until I look back as to when I was a teenager, and I struggled through my teens in various ways, but I was looking for an outlet for the anger that I had for what I felt was misjustifications against me, obviously pent up teenage angst and such like, which is why I can see people get caught up in strange, I suppose, with strange bedfellows, other people that are also looking for a way to vent their anger, but they don't realise this. They just think they're doing some kind of justified joining together to get revenge on those that have hurt them. Retaliation is a big word going round at the moment this week, mainly because of world affairs, which could link to some kind of global troubles, but also people living in their own lives are looking for, obviously, well, I don't want to say revenge or vengeance, because that's not the way, but we seek justice in those that have had wrong done to them. Though many of us also don't trust the justice system. Who do we turn to in moments like this? Who do we turn to seek for help? And I'm going to say to the divine, we can call up to our higher selves, to our higher angels, but I know many people will poo-poo this idea. They just do not understand that once we make that connection with the divine, there is a connection there that will help alleviate our sorrows, will help alleviate our miseries and such like. We still see injustice going on. We might not see vengeance or revenge for what has been wrong to us, but we are connected to the divine, who is aware of what's happening to us. And it is like a big test. We have to seek mercy. We have to seek forgiveness, which again I've done shows about what a strong vibration that is. Such a strong energy. Forgiveness, when we forgive someone, creates a very powerful energy within us that, or would it be powerful? Well, it is powerful in a certain way. I don't mean it's powerful in that you feel like it's ripping through your body to make you super strong. You don't become a Superman. Well, you do. You become a Superman. If one forgives, one becomes supercharged, but with a divine energy. We need to put on our superhero suits. But a lot of the troubles in this world are, as we've discussed in many of these shows, about conscience and consciousness. And I just wanted to read a little quote from Rudolf Steiner, actually. This is from GA 095 by Rudolf Steiner. Conscience is the outcome of experiences spread over a number of incarnations. Fundamentally, all knowledge from the highest to the lowest is the outcome of what a man has experienced. It has come into being as a result of trial and error. A motive such as conscience binds itself to the etheric body, becoming in time a permanent characteristic of it, because the astral body has been so often convinced that this or that would not do. Another interesting karmic relationship is between an habitually selfish attitude and a loving sympathy with others. Some people are hardened egoists, not only in their acquisitiveness, and others are unselfish and sympathetic. Both attitudes depend on the etheric body and may even find expression in the physical body. People who in one life have been habitually selfish will age quickly in their next life. They seem to shrivel up. On the other hand, if in one life you have been ready to make sacrifices and have loved others, you will remain young and hale. In this way you can prepare even the physical body for the next life. But what is the effect of any illnesses it may have had in this life? The valuable pearl derives from an illness. It is a secretion of the oyster, so that in this case life has to fall sick in order to produce something precious. In the same way, physical illnesses in one life reappear in the next life as physical beauty. Either the physical body becomes more beautiful as a result of the illness it endured, or it may be that an illness a man has caught from infection in his environment is compensated by the beauty of his new environment. End quote. So Rudolf Steiner gave this lecture on the 29th of August 1906 in Stuttgart. So again, we're thinking about what our actions are doing in this life will affect our body, our personality, our etheric body, our ego and such like in the next life. It's all karmically related. And I find it quite interesting in that the people that cause a lot of the troubles in this world, well, I don't being judgmental here, but they're not the best looking people in the world. But this isn't what this is about. Beauty is not about, well, what am I trying to say here? There's an inner beauty and an outer beauty, isn't there? And we're trying to develop the inner beauty in ourselves to understand each and every body, each and every other person, each and every aspect of our lives, every moment that we're awake and alive. What are we doing? What are we contributing to this world? I found it quite interesting that Steiner says about people who in one life have been habitually selfish will age quickly in their next life. We're brought up in this world at the moment to think selfishly, even though they try to teach us lessons about let's all do this for the greater good. Most people are very selfishly driven. Thankfully, we still have the myths, the religious texts that are still taught to people to remind people that we are a human race and we are not the only person on this planet, though many people think they are and the world revolves around them. It can be quite difficult sometimes to make people who think like that understand that there are others in this world also trying to live their life. There are philosophers who've written lots of books about this. Am I the only person who exists? Maybe the rest of you are all just programs or part of the simulation that I'm caught up in. But of course I know different to this. I understand there are other souls out there, other spiritual people, and each person has the opportunity to develop their own conscience. It's how they've been developed during life, how they've been brought up, what kind of influences they've had from their peers and such like, that turn them into whether or not they're a selfish person or not. Though I also think it's very important to look at somebody's astrological chart. You can learn a lot from someone's birth chart, and I recommend it for yourselves. Look at your birth chart, see how you've changed. Have you worked out your quirks? Have you improved your higher qualities, your better qualities? And just going back to Steiner again, he says here that some people are hardened egoists, not only in their acquisitiveness, I'm having trouble saying that, in their acquisitions, and others are unselfish and sympathetic. Which version are you? Or is it a certain personality in yourself? Is one of your eyes one way and another eye the other? I don't see many people that are split in that kind of way. They're either one or the other. So we're not just doing it to get by in this life, we're trying to make it better for our next lives. Though again, that sounds all a bit egotistical, doesn't it? Oh, I'm trying to be a good person just so that I have a better life next time. We want to be a good person because we can feel in our heart and soul that we want to be. We understand that being good is the way forward, and that we don't want to cause problems for other people. We don't want it to be us that's causing them problems for others. We don't want to be the villain. We want to be the superhero, but not just from an ego point of view, because we want to work with the divine. We want to be part of the harmonious development of the ongoingness of the universe and the cosmos. And to help the divine, we need to do good vibrations. Well, all these people doing these negative, all about themselves, selfish vibrations are not helping in the evolution of the planet, which, all sounds a bit like the dark forces have a plan to stop the evolution of this planet and the evolution of humanity. And what better way of doing that than making people into selfish, negative, wanting to start war with other people all the time kind of characters. Many people are concerned as to why shit happens to them. Why do they get picked on? Why do they get raped? Why do they have their houses robbed, etc., etc.? Why me? Well, that is the law of accident. They happen. Also, dark forces will try and affect people, upset people of the light, because they're trying to bring us down to their level. We must raise ourselves above that level. We don't want to be separated from the divine, but we can easily forget about our connection to the divine when something awful happens to us by another human being. And obviously there are many monsters out there who pretend to be human beings. And some people sadly are turned into monsters because of what's happened to them in their childhood and their teenage years that they've never quite got over, which is why we need to try and send out those good vibrations that they might somehow pick up, and it might touch their hearts or reach out to their solar plexus just to give them a little inkling, a little speck of goodness that might help them raise themselves out of their negativity. I highly recommend reading Rudolf Steiner's The Apocalypse of St. John, GA 104, or you can listen to it on my channel. I have recorded it and put it out as an audio version. Very powerful, and it tells us what is going to happen to those that do evil on this world and those that are doing their best to stay with the sunlight and be part of the divine. Rudolf Steiner reminds us in Esoteric Lessons GA 266. When the gods created man, they gave him defects so that he could test his strength on them. We should thank the gods for our defects, for combating them makes us strong and free. But we shouldn't love the defects for even a moment. We couldn't thank gods who made us pure and without defects, because they would have made us into weaklings. We should tell ourselves, and even the world was full of devils, we still come from God, ex Deo nascitur. If we fight seriously and constantly, try to get into spiritual worlds, we'll feel that the lower defective part of us dies. in Christio morimo, and then we'll awaken consciously in higher worlds, per spiritum sanctum revivissimum. End quote. And this is part of doing spiritual, soulful work. We're trying to reconnect with the divine, find our way into the spiritual worlds, and help them also evolve. But this all comes down to freedom. Are we free to do this? Do you feel free enough to do this? Or are you tied up to material, secular ways? This is why very few people succeed in reaching the higher states. We're easily distracted by our mundane lives, our, how to pay the bills, having to go to work, seeing to the rest of the family and such like. But we need to find that little bit of time to just sit and connect with the divine, to make sure that we keep the connection going. First and foremost, you must look after yourself. Then we can help others. I do these shows to just try and encourage people to stay on the spiritual path. I have to still work on myself as well. It's an ongoing task to develop myself, to connect with my moral impulses, to try to be as pure as I possibly can, even though obviously I stumble and fall every day, as everybody does. But these are tests, and we can get through them. We can pass. And I know Steiner talks about how the Luciferic spirits gave man material desires. Gurdjieff talks about how we get caught up with material desires because of the Kunda buffer that was attached to us, then removed, and we're still caught to it. But there are countermeasures to this. We can break ourselves free from these material desires and return to the spiritual path. And obviously there is a lot of suffering going on in the world, but Steiner says, I'm just going to quote him here, so there is exactly as much suffering and pain in the world as there is interest only in the physical and the material, end quote. So much interest only in the physical and the material. We can see that going on. We just need to look out the window or put the TV on. They're all interested in the physical and the material. And he's saying that gives us a connection to why there's so much suffering and pain. If people connected with their spiritual and soulful paths, the suffering and pain would lessen in this world, because people would start waking up. They'd start using their conscience, and they would become conscious of what they are doing. So we can help alleviate the world's pain and suffering by first alleviating our own personal pain and suffering, by looking at ourselves as to why we suffer inwardly and outwardly. And it always comes back down to love, isn't it? We need to come back down to unconditional love. And this is from St. Paul. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. As for prophecies, they will pass away. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part, but when the perfect comes, the partial will pass away. End quote. So let's remember, faith, hope and love and charity are the way forward. What needs to be done is heart exercises. We need to develop our heart. For many of us, our hearts have been crushed by our experiences and in our lives. We've been squashed down to have all that love just squeezed out of it, all that unconditional love and understanding. When we've seen what's done to others, it breaks our hearts. When we're filled with love, we are heart-filled. We wish with all our hearts. When we're having happy, good times, we are light-hearted. When we are down, we are heavy-hearted. Sometimes we have to make decisions that are heart-rendering. We go through life hopefully using everything within our heart and soul. For many of us, we go through life and our hearts are feeling uneasy as we see all the injustices in the world. We feel uneasy when we ourselves fall into bad ways. We can feel our heart pumping when we know we're doing something wrong. We also feel our heart pumping when we're within real love. How heavy is your heart pumping? How quickly is your heart pumping? It pumps fast when we're scared. We have to understand the language of the heart. Rudolf Steiner says hearts begin to have faults, and this is going to be the new way of thinking with the heart, end quote. He talks about how the heart organ is transforming and evolving, just as we are transforming and evolving. How big is your heart? Is your heart big enough to fill with so much love that you can send it out into the world? Or is it a teeny weeny heart that is feeling sorry for itself? Our heart is an important organ. Steiner says it's a muscle, though scientists and doctors and such like say it's a pump. Though they are beginning to change their mind on that. There are various papers out there now discussing that the heart is, in fact, a muscle. And muscles can grow, become strong. And that's what we're supposed to be doing with our hearts, making our hearts strong. We must be heart strong. Not headstrong, but heart strong. A lot of the misery in this world is caused because people have very teeny weeny black hearts. Which reminds me that many villains in olden days used to be called black-hearted. Rudolf Steiner's lecture, The Human Heart, given on May the 26th, 1922, is a very good lecture to read. It explains how the heart is growing, how we don't just have our physical heart, we have the astral heart and the etheric heart, and we need to make sure that all those three hearts are growing within ourselves. There's one within another within another. He says, all that happens in the moral life and all that happens physically in the world, the moral and the physical are found in their real union when we learn to understand all the configurations of the human heart, end quote. And later on in the same chapter, or same lecture, he says, quote, in the heart, as far as the etheric universe is concerned, you have a cosmos gathered up into a centre, and a gathering together of all that man does in the world. This is the point where the cosmos, the cosmic process, is joined to the karma of man. This intimate correspondence of the astral body with the etheric body is to be found nowhere in the human organism except in the region of the heart, end quote. Our hearts are important things to look after. Did you know that most people die from heart diseases? That's because all the pressures and struggles of life have an effect upon the heart, which is why we must make our hearts strong. Remember, the heart is connected with the sun. I often visualize the sun coming into my heart and helping it grow. The sun kings are in the sun, and then the sun kings can be in the sun in your heart. Take note of your own heartbeats. And this is a quote from Steiner from the Michael Lectures, which he was given towards the end of his life. Everyone who strives in the light of spiritual science and connects himself with the creative world logos through heartfelt thoughts, sooner or later will learn to read karma. By doing so, he adds to the substance of the etheric youth or angel being through which the etheric Christ reveals himself today, end quote. With these kind of exercises, we are becoming aware of and strengthening the heart as an organ of perception. We work on the heart chakra. In the Indian texts, in the Vedas, they talk about the flame of the heart. It's a threefold flame, a trinity flame. There's three flames within our hearts. One is golden in the middle and represents the wisdom. The flame on the right is blue and represents the masculine side of the Trinity, whereas the flame on the left is pink and represents the feminine aspect of the divinity. So we bring these three together and work to balance the flame so that it shines bright in our hearts. Our hearts must shine brightly. Our hearts must be full of unconditional, compassionate love. Thank you for listening, and let's open ourselves up to peace, love and harmony. Thank you for listening, and until next time, peace and out.